Hi, hello, dear kids. Good morning. This is Srinivasan. Today, the topic we are going to discuss from History 7th Unit, the foundation of Indian National Congress 1870 to 1885 and the partition of Bengal. This is one of the important chapter in our Indian history. Let's we complete this session within 15 minutes. Shall we go? The foundation of Indian National Congress 1870 to 1885. Rise of nationalism. The second half of the 19th century saw the emergence of national political consciousness among a new social class of English educated Indians. The Indians' intelligentsia played a critical role in generating a national consciousness by exposing a large number of people to the idea of nation, nationalism, and various democratic aspirations. They articulated modern notion of citizenship, the idea of the state, civil society, human rights, equality before the law, liberty, the distinction between the people and private, sovereignty, democracy, and so on. The flourishing of print media, both in the vernacular and in English, played a significant role in circulating such ideas. Even though they were numerically small, they had a national character and capacity to establish contact on an all India scale. They were working as lawyers, journalists, government employees, teachers, or doctors. They took the initiative to float political outfit such as Madras Native Association, 1852, East India Association, 1866, Madras Mahajana Sabha, 1884, Pune Sarvajanik Sabha, 1870, the Bombay Presidency Association, 1885, and many others. The British directed their policies to trample on the aspirations of Indians who were exposed to English education and Western ideas and therefore had strong belief in modern values and institutions. However, the national consciousness in the late 19th century was also rooted in the glorification and celebration of Indian past, in which various religious and cultural symbols were used to kindle the patriotic zeal among the people. Economic certitude of nationalism. One of the most significant contributions of early national Indian nationalists was the formulation of an economic certitude of colonization. India was economically subjugated and transformed into a supplier of raw materials to the British industries. Simultaneously, it became a market to dump English manufactures and for the investments of British capital. So, the colonial economy was a continuous transfer of resources from India to Britain without any favorable returns back to India. This is called the drain of wealth. Dadabhai Nauroji, Justice Ranade, and Ramesh Chandra Dutt played a significant role in making this criticism about the colonial economy. They clearly understood that the prosperity of the British lay in the economic and political subjugations of India. They concluded that colonialism was the main obstacle to the Indians' economic development. Objectives and methods. The formations of the Indian National Congress in 1885 was intended to establish an all India organization. It was the culmination of attempts by groups of educated Indians politically active in three presidencies, Bombay, Madras, and Calcutta. A.O. Hume lent his service to facilitate the formations of the Congress. Ramesh Chandra Banerjee was the first president of Indian National Congress. The first session of Indian National Congress was held on 28th December 1885. The early objectives were to develop and consolidate sentiments of national unity, but also professed loyalty to Britain. The techniques included appeals, petitions, and delegations to Britain, all done within a constitutional framework. Some of the key demands were the following: creation of legislative councils at provincial and central level. 2. Increasing the number of elected members in the legislative council. 3. separating judicial and executive functions. 4. Reducing military expenditure. 5. Reducing of home charges. 6. Extension of trial by jury. 7. Holding civil service exams in India as well as in England. 8. Police reforms. 9. Reconsideration of forest law. 10. Promotion of Indian industries and an end to unfair tariff and excess duties. This shows the vast gap between the interests of the upper sections of Indian society and the large mass of common people. Questions of poverty. According to the early Congress leaders, the economic exploitation of India was the primary reason for the abysmal and the growing poverty of India. Therefore, early Indian nationalists advocated industrialization. Militant nationalism. The methods of moderate leaders failed to yield an substantive change in the British attitude towards the moderate demands of early Indian nationalists. They were criticized by a group of leaders known as extremists. Instead of prayers and petitions, these militants were more focused on self-help and the use of religious symbols to bridge the gap between the elite and the masses. The partition of Bengal gave a flip to those who were advocating militant direct action programs to fight the exploitative British policies. Partition of Bengal. In 1899, Lord Curzon was appointed the Viceroy of India. Instead of engaging with the nationalist intelligentsia for handling the problem of famine and plague, Curzon resorted to repressive measures to undermine the idea of local self-government, autonomy of higher education institutions, and gag the press. Partition of Bengal in 1905 was the most unpopular of all. The partition led to widespread protest all across India, starting a new phase of the Indian national movement. The idea of partition was devised to suppress the political activities against the British rule in Bengal by creating a Hindu-Muslim divide. It was openly stated that the objective of partition was to curtail Bengali influence and weaken the nationalist movement. But placing Bengal under two administrative units, Curzon reduced the Bengali speaking people to the linguistic minority in a divided Bengal. Curzon assured Muslims that in the new province of East Bengal, Muslims would enjoy a unity which they never enjoyed since the days of the Mughals. Instead of dividing the Bengali people along the religious line, partition united them. The growth of regional language newspapers played a role in building a sense of proud Bengali identity. Anti-partition movement. The leaders of both the groups, extremists and moderates, were critical of partitions. Initially, the objects of the anti-partition campaign was limited to changing the public opinion in England. So, they protested through prayers, press campaigns, petitions and public meetings. However, despite widespread protest, partition of Bengal was announced on 19 July 1905. With the failure to annul the partisan's moderate leaders were forced to rethink their strategy and look for new techniques of protest. The boycott of British goods was one such method. However, the agenda of Swadeshi movement was still restricted to secure an annulment of partition, and the moderates were very much against utilizing the campaign of start of full-fledged passive resistance. The militant nationalists, on the other hand, were in favor of extending the movement beyond Bengal and to initiate a full-scale mass struggle. The day Bengal was officially partitioned, 16th October 1905, was declared as a day of mourning. Thousands of people took bath in the Ganga and marched on the streets of Calcutta singing Bande Mataram. Boycott and Swadeshi movement in Bengal, 1905 to 1911. Boycott and Swadeshi were always interlinked to each other and part of the wider plan to make India self-sufficient. Four major trends can be discerned during the Swadeshi movements in Bengal. The moderate trend, constructive Swadeshi, militant nationalism, revolutionary territory. These four things all considered as the important trend during the period of Swadeshi movement on Bengal. Constructive Swadeshi. The constructive programs largely stressed upon self-help. It focused on building alternative institutions of self-governance that would operate free of British control. It also laid emphasis on the need of self-strengthening of the people, which would help in creating a worthy citizen for the political agitation. Swadeshi shops sprang all over the place, selling textiles, handlooms, soaps, earthenware, match and leather goods. Passive resistance. From 1906, the Swadeshi movement took a turn where the repeal of partition was no longer on the agenda. For many leaders, the movement was to be utilized for propagating the idea of the political independence or Swaraj across India. Under this new direction, the Swadeshi program included 4 points: boycott of foreign goods, boycott of government school and colleges, courts, titles and government services, development of Swadeshi industries, national schools, recourse to armed struggle if British repression went beyond the limit of endurance. The method of passive resistance had no practical utility in a situations where there is a ruthless and mighty administrations on the side, and on the other the military weaker people. Resistance in such a situation can be provided through relentless non-cooperations and disobedience. Lala Lajpat Rai of Punjab, Bala Gangadhar Tilak of Maharashtra and Bipin Chandra Pal of Bengal were three prominent leaders during the Swadeshi period and were referred to as Lal Bal Pal Triumvirate. Punjab, Bengal and Maharashtra emerged as the hotbed of militant nationalism during the Swadeshi movement. In South India, Tuticorin became the most important location of Swadeshi activity with the launch of Swadeshi Steam Navigation Company by V.O. Chidambaranar. Swaraj or political independence. One of the common goals of the extremist leaders was to achieve Swaraj or self-rule. However, the leaders differed on the meaning of Swaraj. For Tilak, Swaraj was the attain of complete autonomy and total freedom from foreign rule. Unlike the moderates who were critical of the reckless revolutionaries, militant nationalists were sympathetic towards the extremists. However, the political murders and individual acts of terrorism were not approved by the militant leaders. The British brutally crushed the Swadeshi movement by jailing prominent leaders for long spell of imprisonment. Revolutionaries were hanged to death. The press was crushed. Okay dear kids, our session came to an end. I will meet you on following videos. Bye bye from Srinivasan. Take care and love you all.